About a week ago, I uploaded this video, comparing the difference between the Prosecute and Execute enchants alongside my thoughts on the two and which one is better. As soon as this video was released, I got a ton of comments asking for a Giant Killer versus Titan Killer comparison, and this was probably the most requested video on my channel. So as you do, I went out and bought the books I needed, did the testing required, and today's video will be the highly requested Giant Killer versus Titan Killer. But before we do get to the results, if you have any further questions, comments, or suggestions about this video, feel free to visit me when I'm live over on Twitch. I stream every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. The links are down in the description below. Without further ado, let's get right into the video. Okay, so as you can see, today's video is the Titan Killer versus Giant Killer comparison. Now, I know a lot of you guys have been waiting for this for a little while now, and I'm happy to announce that I've finally gone ahead and done this. But as you can see in my inventory, I have two books right here. I have Giant Killer 6, and I've also got Titan Killer 6. In my Execute versus Prosecute video, I only used the level 5 enchants, and I still actually have them on my Liver Dagger and on my Flower of Truth, which isn't on me to this day. But I've gone ahead and taken it up a notch and bought another Giant Killer 6 book so I can compare that with the one that I've already got on my Liver Dagger. And then I've done the same thing with Titan Killer, which was a little bit cheaper. This one's only around 50,000 coins on the auction house, while this is about 1.5 million. So to get things started here, I'm just going to go ahead and read out what the tooltips say on the books themselves. Starting off with Giant Killer here, it says that it increases the damage dealt by 0.6% for each percent of extra health that your target has above you, up to 30%. Now, if that was a huge mouthful for you all, let me quickly break it down for you all and explain what this means. So when it says that it increases the damage dealt by 0.6%, this means that your damage is of course increased by 0.6%. Now we do know that it does cap at 30%, as it does say at the very end of this little description, but it also says that our damage is going to keep on scaling up to 30%, and this depends on how much extra health the mob has above us. So as you can see next to my health bar, it currently says that I've got 2,407 health if we disregard the absorption hearts. Now this means that if a mob has health above 2,407 and the health is more than 30%, then that's when the damage will actually cap on how much you'll end up doing. So 30% is the highest cap that we're going to get with Giant Killer, meaning that you will be doing more damage to mobs that have more health than you do, but you will do less damage to mobs that don't have as much health as you do. If this is still really confusing for you, don't worry, I will hop into some damage tests and show you guys what it actually looks like on the weapons. But moving on from Giant Killer now, we'll go ahead and review what Titan Killer says. So this one says that it increases the damage dealt by 12%, which is already way more than the 0.6% that we get from Giant Killer. But instead of it being for the extra percent of health that the target has, this one is actually for every 100 defense that our target has, and this one caps at 50%. So what this means is that the more defense a mob has, the more damage you'll be doing with Titan Killer, and this does do a lot more than Giant Killer does, as it does cap at 50% rather than 30%. Now, for Titan Killer to be fully effective, I believe the mob has to have above 460 defense. At least those are the rough numbers I did get with some very quick calculations. That may be wrong, but I will go ahead and test that in the damage test later on in this video. But now that we have gone through what both of these enchants do, let's go ahead and hop into the end now and see what we can do on some Endermen. So for these tests, I usually go ahead in the graveyard and just kill Crypticals to get my damage numbers. But I decided I'm going to switch some things up a little bit this time around and take things to the end instead. Another reason for this is because these Endermen have 9,000 health, which is around triple the amount that I've got, which should give us that Titan Killer and Giant Killer perk. So that way we can see how much damage we actually do with these enchants to give you guys some better damage numbers. But before I get to any damage tests right here, I'm just going to go over my gear because I know a lot of people are interested on how I deal the damage that I actually deal. So starting off with the weapon I'll be using, these are all the enchants, the Recombobulators, the Fuming Hot Potato books. It does have the Withered Reforged as well, so if this does interest you, just pause the video here and read through it yourself. As for the armor I'll be using in today's video, I am using 3/4 in Necron with a Tarantula helmet. All the pieces are recombobulated, and I have the Ancient Reforge on them as well. I have 7 legendary, 11 epic, 21 rare, 11 uncommon, and 11 common talismans, which are either shaded or forceful. I am Combat 43, Foraging 31, and also Catacombs 30. And as per usual, I will not be using any pets in today's video to give you guys some more raw damage numbers where pet items are not influential in any way. So to get things started here with the Giant Killer Reforged, I'm going to go ahead and get some hits on these Endermen, doing 243,000 damage. about 243,000 damage, 243,000 damage again, 243,000 damage, and then 243,000 damage on the final hit. So setting a good example with the Giant Killer Reforged, but now it's time to put the Titan Killer Reforged on my Liver Dagger. So if I go ahead and use the 91 XP levels, we are going to now test the Titan Killer Reforged. So if I get a hit on the Enderman, we do 229,000 damage, 229,000 damage again, 229,000 a third time, 229,000 a fourth time, and then 229,000 damage on the final hit. So as you can see, we do cut our damage by 20,000 when switching from Giant Killer to Titan Killer, which was expected. I don't think these Endermen have much defense at all, so there's really nothing to say about this enchant in this situation. While with Giant Killer will always be in effect here, and these Endermen have a lot more health than I do. So it only made sense we were able to do a lot more damage on the basic damage test. So hopping into a dungeon now, I just finished the test over in the end, and we're going to try out the damage of Titan Killer and Giant Killer on some floor 6 mobs. And I figured it would be a good idea to do it in a dungeon run as well, as there are some mobs that I know of that have more defense. And there's also mini bosses and weaker mobs we can test the damage on as well. But to get things started here, I'll be using the Titan Killer enchant first up. So if I go ahead in this room, no blessings, no nothing. I do about 249,000. We did 400,000 on that with the skeleton, and then 400,000 on that mob as well. Now, the one that I did about 200,000 to was a tank zombie, and tank zombies do have a lot of defense, so I will have to see what it looks like with the Giant Killer enchant as well. However, moving on to the next room here, just on some normal zombies, the damage numbers are looking like around 400k per hit. 400k there, 200k on that one, 400k again, 250k on the tank zombie. So like I said before, it does look like it's around 400k for regular mobs, but then on the tank zombies, it's around 250,000. So moving on to the Giant Killer enchant now, I have put that on my Liver Dagger right here. I'm just going to go ahead with the basic damage test. Once again, no blessings, no buffs, no nothing. Doing about 287,000 damage on that hit, 427,000, and then 164,000 on the tank zombie, which is really good to keep into account. 427,000 damage on the fell, 850,000 backstab, but then 427,000 once again on that normal mob. So I actually ran around the dungeon for a little bit to try and find some tank zombies to test the damage on those once again. We were actually able to do about 250,000 damage with Titan Killer, and as you know, tank zombies have a lot more defense than normal mobs actually do. So if I go ahead and try to get a hit on this tank zombie right here, we actually did 110,000 damage, which is a lot less than the 250,000 damage that the Titan Killer was doing to them. Although tank zombies are really only one of the multiple other mobs that exist in dungeons, so I wouldn't be using Titan Killer just for that reason. For the following mini-boss clips, I've decided to slow down the footage and explain what's happening with a voiceover, but coming up on a Yellow Room Angry Archaeologist, I'm able to do around 30 to 35,000 damage per hit, with the occasional spike above 60,000. My damage is relatively inconsistent as a result of other enchants and effects taking place, but most of my damage hovers around 35,000. As for the Giant Killer enchant, my damage was reduced by around 10,000 a hit, doing around 25 to 30,000 damage instead of 30 to 35,000 damage. The other inconsistent factors still stayed prominent, with my damage reaching 60,000 at times, but the Giant Killer enchant is definitely not as effective when it comes to this test. So as you guys saw in the previous clips, the Giant Killer enchant did a significantly better job at just normal room clearing with the regular mobs, while the Titan Killer enchant did a significantly better job with the mini bosses. I was able to deal around 400,000 damage with the Titan Killer enchant just on the normal zombies, the Crypt Lurkers, the Zombie Knights, and also the Fells and the other skeleton mobs. But with Giant Killer, I was doing around 430,000 a hit, which is a pretty big difference, and with blessings, this does get multiplied significantly higher. However, things were a lot different with the Titan Killer enchant. On the mini bosses, I was able to deal a lot more damage with Titan Killer, as the Angry Archaeologists that I did fight do have a lot more defense than the other mobs, meaning that the Giant Killer Reforged didn't do as well. It still did a pretty good job at killing the Angry Archaeologists, but the Titan Killer Reforged just did it better. So now that we have the numbers out of the way and we know which one is better in what situation, what enchant should you buy, which one is more worth it, or what weapon should you choose to put Giant Killer on as opposed to Titan Killer? So for a weapon such as the Liver Dagger, I would say it's a lot more focused on personal preference. With the Liver Dagger, you have a much higher chance of fighting both normal mobs and also mini bosses, but if you use another weapon to room clear more effectively, such as like a Flower of Truth and whatnot, then you probably want to put Giant Killer on the Flower of Truth for sure, as you'll do more damage to the normal mobs, but you'll do a lot less damage to the mini bosses, but that doesn't matter because it is a Flower of Truth, and a Flower of Truth is used for room clear. But with a weapon like a Liver Dagger, there's a good chance that you'll be using this on mini bosses, although if you do find yourself using this on normal mobs as well, then you probably want to stick to Giant Killer, as there are a lot more normal mobs than there are mini bosses, and there's no real point in getting more mini boss damage if you're not able to clear the normal mobs as easily. But even saying that, if you still are able to one-shot with Titan Killer and you prefer to kill the mini bosses a little bit quicker with your Liver Dagger, then you may as well get Titan Killer on your Liver as well. Titan Killer 6 is only like 50,000 coins on the auction house, while Giant Killer is about 1.5 mil. So it really just comes down to personal preference, which one you like more, which one is probably better for you as a player, and also the weapon that you are using to see whether or not it's really worth it. So all in all, a quick recap on this video is that Giant Killer does a really good job at single target one-shotting small mobs, but when it comes to fighting mobs that tend to have higher defense, being mini bosses, tank zombies, and other miscellaneous mobs, Titan Killer does shine a lot more. When it comes to one being better than the other, you're gonna have to pick that one yourself. I would personally go with Giant Killer, as I like having that more safer bet where I can make sure to one-shot all the little mobs, while I don't really care about doing more damage to mini bosses, and Titan Killer doesn't seem like it's more for me. But then again, that's just my opinion, and that's also everything that I have for you in today's video. So hopefully you guys did find this useful or informative in some way, and if you did, be sure to leave a like and consider subscribing to the channel, as I do make these Hypixel Skyblock videos every Wednesdays and Fridays. I know you guys have been requesting this one for a long time, so I'm very happy to be able to put this one out for you all. But if you do have any questions about any of the tests I did, or you'd like to get some further insight on this video, be sure to visit me when I'm live over on my Twitch streams. I do stream every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, so it's a very good opportunity to speak to me when I'm live. But with all that being said, that's going to be it for me today, guys. And as always, take care and peace. I know I said guys, he said I'm actually insane.